She said, "I can't be with a man who has no future," before walking away. I simply replied, "Okay." The very next morning, I accepted the six-figure job offer in New York I had kept secret from her, and she only discovered the truth when my farewell party exploded across social media. 3 months ago, I was sitting in my small and cramped studio apartment when an email arrived that changed the entire course of my life. The subject line read, "Senior Software Developer Position, Final Offer." I had already been through 4 rounds of intense interviews with a well-known tech company based in Manhattan, and now they were offering me a salary so generous that it seemed almost unreal. The only catch was that I had to decide within 2 weeks, and if I said yes, my new life would begin in just 3 months. I remember minimizing the email window and looking across the room at her. She was curled up on my old second-hand couch, scrolling through her phone without a care in the world, completely unaware that my next decision could reshape both of our futures. At that time, we had been together for 2 years and living together for 8 months. I believed we were building something real. The timing, however, couldn't have been worse. She had just landed her dream job at a local marketing firm, finally putting her degree in communications to use after years of retail struggles. Her entire family lived within 20 minutes of us, and so did mine. Choosing to move to New York would mean leaving everything familiar behind. But it also meant that I could break free from the cycle of dead-end jobs and constant financial struggles that had defined my 20s. I told myself I would wait a few days before making any decision. The company had given me 2 weeks, and I wanted to think carefully about how I would tell her. Maybe she would see the opportunity for what it was. A chance for us to start fresh, to experience something bigger together. Or maybe she would see it differently. Sadly, I never got that chance to find out. The conversation that ended our relationship happened on a Tuesday night in March. I came home tired from my mind-numbing job at a small insurance company, a place that barely paid enough to cover my share of the rent and bills. As soon as I walked into the kitchen, I realized something was wrong. She was pacing around, her arms crossed, with that expression on her face that told me she had been holding on to something all day. She started talking about her coworker's boyfriend, how he had just been promoted to regional manager, how they were looking at houses together and planning their future. The comparison hung in the air even before she made it clear. Here was a man with ambition, with a clear path, with a future. And then there was me. She finally turned to me and said she had been thinking a lot about us, about where we were heading. She told me that when she looked at me, she saw someone who was content with being stagnant, someone who lacked drive, someone who seemed comfortable settling for mediocrity. Her words came out quickly, as if she had rehearsed them over and over in her head. Then she said the sentence that would burn itself into my memory. "I can't be with a man who has no future." I stood there in the doorway, still wearing my jacket, and felt something cold settle in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak, not yet. It was something sharper, the weight of irony. Because sitting in my pocket was the knowledge of an offer that proved every assumption she was making about me completely wrong. I could have pulled out my phone right then and shown her the email, watched her entire argument collapse before her eyes. But I didn't. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the realization that if she couldn't see my worth without a 6-figure salary attached, then she had never truly seen me at all. So instead, I just said one word, "Okay." That word stunned her. She had expected an argument, maybe a plea for her to stay. Instead, she packed her things and moved out that weekend. By Sunday, I was alone in an apartment that felt twice as empty as it had before. And on Monday morning, I sat down at my laptop, opened that email again, and accepted the job that would change everything. The following 3 months went by in a blur. I quietly gave my notice at work, arranged to sublet my apartment, and let the company handle my relocation to New York. I didn't tell her. I didn't even tell my friends or family at first. Keeping that secret felt like holding a hidden weapon, something too precious to share with anyone who might not understand. But as the weeks passed, I finally told a few close friends and my parents, and the news spread. When my coworkers suggested throwing a farewell party, I agreed without thinking much of it. What I didn't expect was how big it would become. What began as a few people meeting for drinks turned into a huge celebration. Old friends showed up, people I hadn't spoken to in months came to say goodbye, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the main character in my own story. Someone took photos, and by the end of the night, social media was flooded with posts about me. Group pictures, congratulations, excited comments about my move to Manhattan. That was how she found out. She had no idea I had taken the job until she saw my farewell party all over social media. That very night, my phone lit up with her messages. First a simple, "Can we talk?" Then an hour later, "Is it true? Did you really get that job?" By morning, the messages had grown longer and more desperate, asking why I hadn't told her, wondering if I took the job out of spite, asking if we could reconsider everything. I listened to every voice message she left, then deleted them all without reply. When she showed up the morning I was loading my moving truck, she looked smaller, less certain than the confident woman who had walked out of my life months before. She tried to apologize, to explain that she had been scared, that she had projected her own fears onto me. She admitted she had been wrong about me. Then she asked if I would stay, or if not stay, at least take her with me. I looked at her, standing there in the driveway of the life we had shared, and felt nothing. I told her I appreciated her words, but that her timing said everything. She hadn't believed in me when it mattered most. And with that, I closed the chapter on us for good and drove away toward my new life. New York became the fresh beginning I had dreamed of and more. From the moment I stepped into my new office, I felt an energy that was entirely different from the small-town life I had left behind. The job was challenging in the best way possible. The kind of work that made me want to wake up early, push myself, and keep learning. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was wasting my potential. Instead, I felt like I was finally living the life I had always known I was capable of, even if no one else had believed in me. My apartment in Brooklyn overlooked the Manhattan skyline, and each night I sat by the window reminded me that this was where I belonged. She, however, couldn't let go so easily. In the weeks that followed my move, my phone continued to light up with messages from her. At first they were polite, a simple happy birthday or a hope you're doing well, but slowly, they shifted into something more desperate. She wanted to know if I ever thought about her, if I regretted how things ended, if there was any chance we could rebuild what we had lost. I never gave her what she wanted. My replies were brief, polite but cold. It wasn't cruelty, it was boundaries. Because I realized that if she couldn't stand beside me when I was struggling, then she didn't deserve to be there when I was rising. Months later, I heard through a mutual friend that she had quit her job and moved to another city. She claimed she needed a fresh start, but from what I was told, it didn't go well. She struggled to find work, struggled to make friends, and eventually came back to our hometown, living with her parents while trying to figure out her next move. It was almost ironic. She had once accused me of having no future, yet now she was the one stuck in place, unsure of where to go or who to be. I should have felt vindicated, but mostly, I felt grateful that she had shown me her true colors before we built a life that would have trapped me in mediocrity forever. 6 months into my new life, I ran into someone from our old social circle while grabbing coffee before work. We sat down for a quick catch-up, and he told me about the gossip back home. She had been asking about me, wondering if anyone had visited me in New York, wondering if I ever spoke of her. The picture he painted wasn't the same strong, confident woman who once walked away from me so easily. Instead, it was someone who looked lost, unsure of herself, and constantly haunted by the choices she had made. Meanwhile, I had already been promoted at work, moved into a better apartment, and started dating someone new, a brilliant architect who saw my ambition as a strength instead of a burden. A year later, I returned home for a family wedding, and that was when our paths crossed again. I didn't see her at the ceremony, but word spread quickly that she was there, asking about me. Relatives whispered that maybe I should reach out, that perhaps time had changed things. I smiled and nodded, but I knew better. Late that night, as I sat at a local bar with an old friend, she finally appeared. She looked more put together than she had in months, but her eyes still carried a sadness that no outfit could hide. She walked over and asked if she could sit. For 20 minutes, we talked. She told me about her new job, how she was slowly rebuilding. She mentioned seeing pictures of me and my girlfriend on social media and said we looked happy. Her voice trembled as she admitted that she had misjudged me, that she had made a terrible mistake letting me go. She said she didn't expect anything from me now, but she wanted me to know that she finally understood how wrong she had been. I listened quietly, and when she finished, I told her the truth, that I was glad she was doing better, but that I had moved on. We hugged goodbye, and as I walked out of that bar into the cool night air, I knew it would be the last conversation we ever had. She belonged to a chapter of my life that had already ended, and I was living in a future that she had once told me I would never have. The next morning, I boarded a plane back to New York, back to my real life, back to the future I had built for myself without her. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about confrontation or proving someone wrong with words. Sometimes, it's about quietly becoming everything they said you couldn't be, until the evidence of your growth speaks louder than anything you could ever say. She said I had no future. I proved her wrong by creating one so bright that she could only watch it from afar. Every post, every achievement, and every smile I shared became a silent reminder that her words had not broken me. They had built me. While she had walked away believing she was escaping a man with no future, the truth was that she had walked away from the very future she secretly wished she could have. In the end, I didn't need to block her, nor did I need to respond to her desperate messages that filled my inbox. My silence was louder than any explanation I could ever give. My life became the answer, and the world became the witness. She wanted a man with a future, but by the time she realized I was one, she was no longer part of my story. So I moved forward, head held high, into a city that welcomed me with open arms. And as for her, she could keep watching from behind a screen, wondering what could have been, while I lived the future she once claimed I'd never have.